Coca-Cola is happiness in a can. I didn't make that up. Dan and I were in Wisconsin. This is the first time I had an olive burger. Excuse me. My name's Charles Cicirella. I'm going to read some poetry that I wrote. And I hope you like it. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. Well, I'm actually in Mayfield Heights, Ohio, which is an eastern suburb. Now I'm crying. I'll be all right in a minute. Excuse me. Elvis has left the building. You may be having performance issues. You know what? Wait till your computer starts to like feed you blue pills. That's a bridge too far. La La Lindsay too. Cut into a vein. See what you get. Perchance it's genius. Perchance it's in jest. Cutting your assistant in halves is no illusion at all if you already cut her into pieces the night before. Because she wouldn't do what you wanted. And as a great magician, you believe everything is owed to you, up front and open-ended. The words pour out of me like barbecue sauce out of a stuck pig. I know I'm a glutton for punishment, and I prefer it just that way. I watch the cam model entice the crowd with her pink swirling machine, but it doesn't hold an Elton John candle to your anchor or blessed ridicule. I don't see you for who you want to be, but instead what I need at this particular moment in history. Actually, there's a chopped down cherry tree. Excuse me. Actually, that's a chopped down cherry tree lie, because I honestly only see you for what you brought to kindergarten, that first day the world was exposed to you. When the singer started to sing, I was so caught off guard, I almost caught my thing in my zipper. I'm drinking lukewarm Faygo root beer, and I just noticed an hour ago it was Christmas. It's true what they say. Life is good when Jesus comes at you like 68 Elvis dipped in black leather. Splice together all the relevant footage of our lives, and you'll soon realize being irrelevant isn't such a bad fate if every other choice leaves you unsatisfied and unrepentant. Nailed to the crossing of my next lackadaisical persecution. That's a mouthful. I'm always waiting for the next home invasion, the next tear to fall, next dog to be put down, next hand to hold or human to push away, next frozen bag of peas I must conquer because they remind me too much of Holden and all his depleted Dakota fantasies. Learn to love and then kill the rabbit before your spawn tears apart this world with its Ann Landers advice written for bored housewives that need a reason to live or die because it's too late and their absent husbands discover learn to love and then kill the rabbit before you're learn to love and then kill the rabbit because you're learn to love and then kill the rabbit because your spawn tears apart this world with its Ann Landers advice written for bored housewives that need a reason to live or die before it's too late and their husbands discover just how radical suburbia is. I'm always waiting for the next shoe to drop. Even when the shoe doesn't fit and the show must go on. Even when Esther is underwater and Christian Bale has lost so much weight, he's the next Invisible Man. And no one has the nerve to tell him his bandages don't fit. The next friend that reminds me of the cross I've nailed myself to, best keep in mind their own glass house failings, and how just because you were once a legend in your own mind hardly means the kids still want to go down in the basement with you. We walked out of Jim's memorial, and Mike spoke some words that have been engraved onto my soul like a Tennessee Williams rose tattoo, even though the actual words, they've escaped my panic room, Jodie Foster mind long ago. You want to believe I'm something I'm not? Go right on ahead. But at some point, your misgivings will catch up with you. And when they do, I don't want to be anywhere near your whistle stop tour to become a better human, because I become convinced your campaigning will silence all of us before even our voices can escape our yellow canary throats. This poem is coming out fast and furious, because that's how it sometimes is. When you cannot spare square, and the smell of shit reminds you of summers in the country with the mannequins and stoats. I no longer have anything to do with relationships, because I too often lose myself in the other person. If you aren't willing to walk through fire to reach me, then why should I even light the match and allow you to experience my burning intellect? My life is a comedy of errors, and no one is laughing. When I was born, I swear I slipped on a banana peel. It defined my life, and maybe it'll define my death. We shall see when the Grim Reaper comes around and attempts to sell me a reverse mortgage. Shame on you, Henry Winkler. Expression and exposure. That is all I have to give. And if that's not enough for you, well, then I don't know what to say other than fuck off. These days, most Cleveland poets drive around in neutral, while I tend to ride the brake, because I know Henry Fonda believed in a Jewish conspiracy to take over the world. Oh my God, that's not right. Let me try that again. It wasn't Henry Fonda, it was Henry Ford. Whoops! These days, most Cleveland poets drive around in neutral, while I tend to ride the brake, because I know Henry Ford believed in a Jewish conspiracy to take over the world. And I also know that the man who revolutionized the auto industry moved the planet that much closer to an early grave. The pandemic has made being a pariah pretty much business as usual. And what's unusual is how you're drawn to me like flies to cow shit. I wish to go around the bend one more time, Chris, because before I call it, let's try that again. Me. I wish to go around the bend one more time because, why do I keep saying because? I wish to go around the bend one more time before I call it quits and hang up my spurs and my unvarnished wit. Where's Jim Murray when you need him? He discovered Dylan. He covered Dylan like no one else. But when it came to uncovering himself, he'd rather escape into a box of just for men brown hair dye and pretend he wasn't as paranoid as he actually is. When he sprang the word intellect on me at the Barking Spider when I was 17, he became extremely agitated when I told him I'd never heard the word before. When I When I died, no one came to my services because they figured, why pay attention now when they'd been turning a blind eye already for so many unceremonious years? It's okay though, because all I ever really wanted was one more corned beef sandwich from Vienna, and to know I had at the very least touched one or two people in my unscrupulous wake as a poet and a muckraker. She got down on her knees, and before I could figure out what she had up, she got down on her knees, and before I could figure out what she was up to, had gone through my pockets and slipped out the back door. I'll, of course, never learn, and invited her back into my heart over and over again. Because it's lonely out here in space, when all you have to keep you company is your own ego and a couple of scratchy 45s. One second, I have to blow my nose. This is a poem for Dan Clute, and it's called Dan Clute. Flying through empty space, trying to discover a friend. Queen Jane said she needed to see someone before we went to the Indian restaurant, and I was annoyed because I hate meeting new people. When I saw him that day in Chicago 2009, Kalamazoo 2008 resurfaced. Because the die had already been cast, and now it was time for us to break the mold together. He catches you off guard with his earnestness, because with Dan, there are no false notes or acts of sedition that tear a country apart and ruin your fucking day. Sometimes when we're hanging out, I feel as if I'm Harvey to his Jimmy Stewart, which is funny because Clute is the first honest-to-goodness I'm not going to pronounce this word wrong. I've pronounced it wrong once before.
Puka.
Because Clute is the first honest-to-good puka I've ever met. We brave the cold and the heat, desperately trying to find our foothold, while climbing a stone face of granite and egregious hypocrisy. Cooking up some frozen crap in Linda's kitchen when I proposed to Dan that he'd do his very own radio show on Radio Ether. He was wearing oven mitts, those really big oven mitts, and he was doing his best to fish the pizza out of the cavernous furnace, and he said yes immediately. He had his head like halfway into the oven, and neither one of us have looked back. I discovered a friend when I didn't even know I was looking for one, and he's there in the best of times and in the worst of times, because he's a force to be reckoned with and a force to be experienced in this life of love and unbelievable beauty. Dan Clute. Yeah, I just mentioned Mike Rep in a poem a little bit ago. I want to read a poem called Hey Mike Rep. What's weird is sometimes you never know when you write somebody a poem what will happen. Even if the poem, and sometimes especially if the poem is paying tribute to the person. Maybe they get uncomfortable. That's what happened with this poem. Mike and I are now not speaking because of this poem. Hey, it happens. I still love him though, like a brother. He is a brother. Known him since I was 18 or 19. He's the one who introduced me to Jim Shepard. I love Mike Rep. Hey, Mike Rep. Let's go down to the basement. We can hold hands like a couple of fags, because there's nothing wrong with that. And I love you. I loved you since you first had my back at the poetry forum at Larry's. Neither one of us ever had much use for the academia, except of course for Mary Rum and Frank Richardson. I love you like when I was a kid and didn't know the sun was rooting for the demise of our civilization. You're 15 years older than me, but that only makes me think how you are beating the crap out of whatever it may mean to be a senior. Because even when you slow down, you're still moving at light speed. Any introductions that needed to be made, you made them. Because you were never afraid of the best laid plans of mice and men. The whole experience of a coney, cheese, chili cheese dog, and a root beer float never made much sense. Until you took me under your wing and showed me just how close Icarus flew to the sun. Mike, your Greek mythology come to life. Because your myth has always preceded the actual science fiction that Mike Rep is. But none of that means a fucking thing. Once your calendar's in astro weeks and your frame of reference is bushy-eyed and cotton-tailed. A rocket to nowhere bursts through the atmosphere because getting out of this town is all the rocket had on its mind. That rocket and me have a lot in common. And that's why I'm writing this poem to you. Mike. This poem is for a friend of mine, Rachel's son, for Carter. It's called Macaroni and Cheese. Hi, Carter. I like macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets too. They help me to make sense of the world. Plus the routine lends me a modicum of serenity. I'm making macaroni and cheese right now. It's 12:55 a.m. and I need to fill my stomach with some comfort food. I like the night because the silence keeps me company by consuming my doubts and turning them into rainbow sherbet. Dishwasher's running makes a lot of noise. Why is there a train in the kitchen? The macaroni and cheese was very good, and there's even leftovers. I was tempted to eat it all, but knew it would make my stomach hurt. Getting up at 5 in the morning with cramps is no way to begin the day. Carter, I'll make it out to Mineral City at some point, and we'll all hang out, and maybe we can pull out the Legos and watch you build a new world. Sometimes it's important to step outside of your comfort zone, if only to better relate to those around you. I scooped up handfuls of clouds, and I inhaled them like they were cotton candy. I'm going to read another poem. This one's for Rachel and Carter. I've known Rachel since I worked at J.R. Miggs, like 97, 98 is when I started there. And I still talk to a number of people. My friend Ted, my friend Bob, Rachel, Dana. There's a lot of people. And then there were just Jim Pauley, he passed away. Nick McGovern, he passed away. Right before I got the job at Miggs, I really wasn't doing well emotionally. And then I got the job, and it's incredible how, your life can change. Just, right, boom. Boom. This is for Rachel and Carter. I've known Rachel since I was a young punk, screaming at the top of my irascible lungs while digging my feet into the gravel behind J.R. Miggs. She let me drive her car without a license while we went on clandestine missions, which I cannot go into in more detail, because this poem is also for her young son. Rachel's the first person that I met at Miggs. It made me feel welcome, and that was a long time coming for me. We've kept in sporadic touch over these past many years, and every time we talk on the phone, it's like no time has passed, and we're still just as silly and ready to take on the world. Rachel always supported my art and never made me feel judged or like a pariah, just because my worldview is unconventional and doesn't jive with the creaky, cranky status quo. When we went out to California for Nick and Dana's wedding, I knew I could always count on her to hang out with, and that we'd laugh until we both nearly peed our pants. I wanted to meet Carter since he was born because he sounds so cool, and also because I know Rachel's the best mommy in the world. She's always been honest with me, and not once did she let me down by losing her nerve and acting like all the rest of the sheep humans who resist change by endlessly staying the same. I want to break out of my cage, and when I do, I'm going to call up Rachel, grab a Stephen King book, and go pick her and Carter so we can all just get lost for a while and not worry about being found until we're good and ready to come back home. Metal Goddess for Sarah. I met Sarah on Twitter. She's from Spain. Need to listen to Metallica soon. Find out what Sarah is raging on about. Banging her head, taking no prisoners. Lost in the fog of death metal. Found her soul when she gave up control. Chorus skating as black as Sarah's booming bottom.
Chorus skating.
Her enthusiasm infectious. Creativity, what gets her through. An artist who never looks back. The Sandman enters and nothing else matters. Would you pull me up? Would you drop the metal bullet? Would you? Alleviate some of this pressure. Our scruples will be the death of us. Lost out at sea, Babylon, the scarlet whore, has come. I can no longer sleep through this colossal nightmare. Death. Fire washes over me like tears. I feel sad, but don't want to cry in front of my doppelganger. Life's like that. 1 second you got nothing, and the next you have 3 pair. I remember the first time I walked out onto the break wall. Nothing on either side, and I ended up crawling like a little bitch. I'd like to think I'm stronger now, but nothing could be further from the truth. I'm a savings account that pays no interest. It's nothing I'm proud of. But even a dog has its dog days. I looked at the ladder of success and decided that wasn't for me. Biblical shit's happening all around us, and we're too stupid to see the signs and act accordingly. Even a little piece of cloth on our face is too much to ask, because some people believe ignorance and liberty are one and the same. Seeing compromise as weakness only weakens our resolve to be free. I remember each and every unrequited love I foolishly believed I cared for. Thankfully, the poetry kept me company and taught me that one person's boundaries are another person's poppy field. I need to smoke some weed soon, because straight reality with no chaser isn't working for me. I have no clue if dying is hard, nor do I remember what my birth was like. But one thing I'm certain of, whatever's next, I'll accept like 2 rounds to the chest. Stop overthinking everything, because that's just another shovel digging you deeper into the unapologetic ground. Pull on your boots and remember when entering the fray, that you've done this 1,000,000 times before, and you're getting good at living up to your end of the bargain for a change. Birth. Water washes over me like magma. I'll be okay. I always am, until I'm not. I remember the first poem I wrote. It was about the moon. I knew then nothing would ever be the same. I'm an outlaw poet. It's nothing I aspired to be, but when the claws of creation took hold, I knew I was born to be wild. Heard like a rolling stone on the radio the other day, and I felt no fear, and I still feel no fear. The tide's coming in, and I don't even live near water. In fact, I'm a water sign and have avoided the deep end ever since I nearly drowned right beneath a lifeguard's toes. This crab takes his shell wherever he goes, and when I'm dead, I'll find another shelter to call my very own. I remember the first time I walked out onto a stage, how for the very first time in my life I felt comfortable in my own skin. I knew from then on everything would be different, and I thanked God for entrusting me with art. Our birth and our death are the same playing card, just in reverse. Think about when you were born, because death is just like going back to the beginning. Put on your life jacket, swim out past the rocks, and I'll meet you there in a little while. Stick the $400 up your ass, or the pale horse and horsemen are on our trail. If you don't believe the news is rigged, just surf back and forth from one news channel to the next, and you'll soon notice they're all reporting on the same stories at just about the same time. Also, have you ever wondered why no one's really pushing back on the orange dumbass? I mean, as much of an imbecile as he is, and yet not one single journalist truly pushes back on this sadistic prick. Right from the get-go, we hear, well, he's the president and must be treated with the respect of the office. And yet when the office has been mocked beyond repair, I think it's time to take the gloves off. Look how poorly President Obama was treated by the Republicans, and yet everyone's bending over backwards to make damn sure dump truck isn't insulted, to which I say, fuck that. Even during a full-blown pandemic, and still as briefings are reported on, when actually they're nothing but an exercise in futility. Today, he said children are immune from COVID-19, which is not only a bold-faced lie, but is dangerous speech because many ignorant people listen to this bullshit and act accordingly. Now he has signed executive orders which are all part of the Republicans' grand plan to defund Social Security and Medicare. And instead of taking to the socially distant streets, we stay indoors, grumbling because we cannot watch sports or go to a massage parlor for a happy ending. I say stick the $400 up your ass because it was never, as you call it, an incentive for people to return to work, but instead is a way for families to stay alive while the pandemic continues to clean our red, white, and blue clocks. I used to believe that once it was a matter of life or death, that people would finally wake up. But instead, the opposite has happened, as our country turns into a death cult, where even a child's life isn't sacred, as the herd is thinned right before our dispassionate eyes. Grieve! 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 That poem was written on August 10th, 2020. The last piece I'm going to read is brand new. I wrote it for Daniel Sneven. Yes, that's his name. I said that to a friend of mine and she said, he sounds like a Dr. Seuss character. I think he is a Dr. Seuss character. You know, we're living in Alice in Wonderland times when now they're saying that even Dr. Seuss books have to go. Certain Dr. Seuss books are racist. Oy vey, oy vey. This is called Badlands. The Lakota people know where the door to Mother Earth is. I doubt they'll ever show us, because it's painstakingly clear we don't know how to keep a secret. Stand outside and change your mind. And when you return, maybe then you won't so quickly dispense with the formalities and take room service for granted. I watched her in the tub as she splashed around like a Santa Monica mermaid, and I swear it diminished my own trifecta of filth. You want to draw straws? Fine. But by the time we're through, we'd better have a clear line of succession. I've never been very good at delegating. I think it's got something to do with when I was a child, and getting hung out to dry was a national pastime like baseball and guns. The Badlands inhabit my dreams and keep me from getting frostbite. You desperately keep trying to fill me up with lies about this or that failed policy for free expression and free trade, when neither one does a damn thing to keep us any safer. We'd be better off handing America back to the Native Americans, because Mother Earth will never reveal her secrets to us. Thank you for listening. I'm Charles Cicirella. Mayfield Heights, Ohio is where I'm at. Thank you.